Welcome into the newest episode of the Hot Hangout podcast. We are glad to have you here joining us for this one. We're going to have some awesome Ahsoka episode 8, the season finale talk, our discussion and breakdown, all in today's episode. But before we get to that, Joey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, little sleepy, a little tired. we're doing a little bit of a later recording today, but the excitement's here. We're talking about Ahsoka. We're gonna get a lot of energy getting into this, but yeah, this is going to be an exciting finale discussion about the Ahsoka series.
Definitely so. A little bit of an Easter egg for those of you listening. The first third of this podcast, well, let me preface this by saying the second 2/3 of this podcast was recorded around 10:30 p.m. The first third that we are currently recording, that you are currently listening to, is being recorded at 1:10 in the morning. So some technical difficulties behind the scenes. Right. Long story short, we're here. We're recording the beginning of this episode, and we are excited about it. Although, as Joey mentioned, we are a bit sleepy. It is a bit late.
we are in the world between worlds. That's what we just went through.
Yes, here. Exactly. Lots of Ahsoka episode 8 discussion to come today. If you're not already subscribed to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click like on the video as well. We would very much appreciate it. Shout out to the 334 of you subscribed over there on the Hoth Hangout YouTube. What's going on, y'all? Additionally, if you are listening to the podcast in audio format, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, first of all, we appreciate it. Second of all, if you could leave us a 5-star review on any of those platforms, you would be amazing. You would be awesome and forever in our hearts if you did so. And again, thank you for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you. You can also check us out on the socials at Hoth Hangout, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, or X at Hoth Hangout on each of those. You can also email us hothhangout@gmail.com. Any of your Star Wars or not Star Wars related questions.
Just say hi.
Whatever your heart desires. Yeah, just say hello. Reach out to us. Say what's going on. We would appreciate it. Again, that's hothhangout@gmail.com if you're interested in doing that.
We really need to do these late at night. This is we're getting kind of goofy already.
Yeah, I can already tell my demeanor is a little more goofy than it normally would be. So
late night after dark, Hoth Hangout.
Yeah, it's funny because we're talking about like how we're going to talk about the episode, and we've already done our talking about the episode. So I'm like, okay. But yeah, something we are doing now, which we, I guess this is our quote unquote first time talking about the news for tonight.
Most definitely.
Wink, wink. Is that our first small piece of news is that there was a leaked trailer on Reddit for the new Acolyte show, which is still to be confirmed on the actual release date for. But again, this was, I don't know. I looked like someone, at least from the one I watched. Yes, I watched it. Spoiler. I won't tell you what's in it.
Well,
but it looked like it was recorded on a phone in some type of theater or showing.
Oh, really?
Like
okay.
That. So,
I didn't even know if it was like what level of. I didn't even think about quality. I thought it was
no. This
somebody
was like,
stole the file.
This was like the bootleg of the bootleg. Yeah, this was.
It was a recording of someone's phone that was watching it. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So, what did you think of it?
Great trailer. Lots to be excited for. I was excited for this show already, anyways. I don't know if my excitement for the Acolyte is quite on Ahsoka level excitement, but I think this show is still going to be pretty great. For those that don't know, this is going to take place like just before the prequel era, kind of in the time leading up to Phantom Menace.
So, was this the High Republic one or
no? Acolyte is after High Republic, or I guess technically, yeah, it'd be after High Republic, like right before the fall
prequels.
Of the Republic. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So like, what was the name of the Jedi? I'm just kidding. Don't tell us anything.
I will withhold. I mean, I didn't really get names or details from
names,
the trailer.
Okay.
I don't. If I did, I don't remember. But
how long was it?
It was a good 90 seconds, maybe 90 seconds, 2 minutes, something like that.
All right. It's out there.
It's out there. Hopefully,
it's not
the
on
actual version.
I checked Reddit and I couldn't find it. So.
Oh, it got taken down.
Yeah, it got taken down, and then there was There was a post pointing to a YouTube link that was also taken down, so I think it's been wiped.
Oh,
We
I
lost our
got the
chance.
early access.
That's right, yeah.
But yeah, be on the lookout for the actual release of the Acolyte trailer, hopefully coming sometime in the next few weeks or hopefully before the end of the year. I would really hope so at the very least.
Mhm.
Our second piece of news for tonight is that there is a new Hasbro line that was released. The Hasbro line has released a Holocom theme Star Wars Black Series action figures.
Yeah.
And maybe we can link this down in the show notes as well for this episode. But these are really cool looking. I think there's 5 of them in total. It looks
Mhm.
like it's Han Solo, Ahsoka, the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, and Axe Wolves. Joey, what do you think about these new holocom themed Star Wars Black Series action figures?
I think they're really cool looking. They remind me of they have a lot of Force Ghost versions of the figures
Mhm.
for like the Jedi or whoever. That kind of has a similar type of blue, see-through, translucent type of material in them. So it kind of reminds me of that. But what's cool about it, it kind of shows you the comm puck, or I forget what you even call those, but it looks like they're coming right out of the puck there, and it's doing like the comm messages straight to you. So I don't know if there's anything, um, if it actually talks or anything like that. I don't remember reading anything like that, but I could be wrong. But either way, I mean, you have these 5 figures. I'm excited for the Ahsoka one. I think there's that one and the Bo-Katan one. Those are the ones that I'll be aiming for. And I just realized that they are a Yahoo Entertainment exclusive. I think that's what it looks like here, according to this article here. I don't know what that means, but I guess maybe it's just it'll show a little sticker saying something with the exclusive sticker on it. But either way, I think the pre-order is in 12 hours from when the time of this recording, I believe. And we could all wait to get our little Holocom Black Series figures.
Yeah, it's interesting. The pre-sale for 4 of these 5, excluding the Ahsoka one, as you mentioned, it becomes available October 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm not sure what the Yahoo exclusive thing is referring to, but
Hmm.
after reading about each of these, it looks like each action figure is actually being sold through pre-order exclusively at different retailers. So
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Oh, yeah, I do see that now. Yeah.
for
Hmm.
example, like the Han Solo one is only available pre-ordered through Hasbro Pulse,
Hmm.
whereas the Axe Wolves one is only available for pre-sale through Amazon. And then, like, the Mandalorian one and the Bo-Katan one or no, excuse me, the Bo-Katan one is exclusively through Target. Mandalorian one is exclusively through Shop Disney and Hasbro Pulse, and the Ahsoka one is exclusively through Walmart.
Mm.
So different
Yeah.
retailers exclusively getting access to each of these.
Yeah. Collectors going to have to do their work in order to get all these for sure.
What do you think the bidding war was like to be the one that got the Ahsoka one?
You got to think it was pretty high. I mean,
Yeah.
Walmart's a big company, obviously, but all these Amazon and Hasbro obviously are pretty big. But yeah, the Ahsoka one's going to be the most sought after, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the only one of
Mhm.
these 5 that comes out for pre-order on October 12th rather than October 5th, so all you collectors out there, some cool new additions to the Star Wars universe to collect here with the Holo themed Black Series action figures. Be on the lookout for those. Lastly, the piece of news we want to lastly touch on before we get to our Ahsoka episode 8 breakdown and discussion is in reference to something we announced first 2 weeks ago. Top Shelf Breaks, a friend of the program who has actually been on an episode of Hoth Hangout. If you missed that one, was on episode, is it 40,
40.
Joey?
Yes,
Yeah,
episode 40.
episode 40 came on and talked some Star Wars collecting with Joey. That's a great episode if you haven't managed to catch it. We'll link that in the show notes as well. But something we announced 2 weeks ago is that courtesy of Top Shelf Breaks, we are giving away a Star Wars super box. And all you had to do to enter that giveaway was comment hashtag HothyAnniversary on either last week or the previous week's podcast episode. And so prior to announcing the winner of the Star Wars Super Box, which we're about to do in about 60 seconds, we wanted to give another special announcement courtesy of Top Shelf Breaks. In fact, rather than just giving away one Star Wars super box, we're now giving away two Star
Oh
Wars super
my gosh.
boxes.
Thank you, Top Shelf Breaks.
Yes, and again, this is a good opportunity. If you're not already subscribed to Top Shelf Breaks, check out his link in the show notes below. Hit that subscribe button and show him some love next time you post a video, or just say hey on YouTube in the comments. It would really mean a lot to us because he's done a lot to support this channel, and so we would like to do the same for his in return. So
Absolutely.
check him out. Link in the show notes below. So, having said all that, rather than announcing one winner right now, we are going to announce two winners of the Star Wars Super Boxes, as we now have two of them to give away. So, without further ado, the two winners of the two separate Star Wars Super Boxes, courtesy of Top Shelf Breaks, are first Lord Galvatron.
Hey, yo.
Congratulations. And secondly, Spy on Sports.
All right.
Congratulations to both of our giveaway winners there. Actually, both of these commenters regularly comment on our
Mhm.
videos, so it was cool to see both of them win these. And in fact, some of our comments that we'll highlight today as part of our Ahsoka episode 8 discussion were submitted by these two as well. So,
Yep.
um, we want to say thank you to each of you for listening to the podcast and for just being a part of the Hoth Hangout community. And we hope you enjoy your Star Wars super boxes. You can contact us on Twitter, Instagram, or email, whatever's easiest for you, and we'll get in touch with you about the best way to get you those Star Wars super boxes.
Sure.
Congratulations.
Good job, y'all. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. And speaking of Lord Galvatron and Spy on Sports,
Ah.
it's now time for us to shift into our Ahsoka episode 8 discussion, and we are going to do so by looking at some comments. As I mentioned, two of these were submitted by Lord Galvatron and Spy on Sports. We've got a couple of them here to look at off the bat. Lord Galvatron says, "Gotta brush up on my Mortis Gods lore now. Sick episode, though."
Mm-hmm.
Of course, referencing mainly the end of the episode with Balin standing on the hand of the father at the end there. But yeah, again, a Clone Wars shout out here.
Indeed.
We should give, if there's anyone out there and you're like, there was a lot of stuff in Ahsoka I didn't really get what
Yeah.
this meant, what that means. Clone Wars, a lot of the holes. That's all I'm saying.
True. True. True.
Especially the Mortis God stuff. If you're really interested in that, highly, highly recommend watching the Clone Wars. It will really fill in some holes and make things, in terms of the Ahsoka show, a lot clearer for you. And then Spy on Sports had a funny comment here as well. Spy on Sports says, "Star Wars: A New Hope, Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, and now," in reference to our most recent Ahsoka episode, "Star Wars: The Walking Dead." With the eye roll emoji, of course, referencing the undead night troopers we got in this episode. Kind of crazy there as well. I can tell you we're definitely going to be talking about that because we already talked about that. uh, but yeah, there we'll have some good discussion, kind of on our thoughts regarding what that means for just Star Wars, the decision to resurrect night
Mm-hmm.
troopers, and, just magic in general, and kind of how that plays into everything. So, shout out to Lord Galvatron and Spy on Sports for those two comments as well, and congratulations for winning the giveaway for the Star Wars Super Box. And we do also want to give a special shout out to Aunt Masuvi, a longtime supporter of the podcast and typically comments on the videos as well. Aunt Masuvi says, "Many thanks, Ben, Joey, and Gibbo. Hashtag Hoth Hangout. Hashtag Star Wars. Hashtag Rick Famuyiwa. Hashtag Ahsoka."
Yes.
Aunt Masuvi, we appreciate you so very
Thank
much.
you, Aunt Vesuvi.
We do have a fourth comment here, and this is a little bit more of a, I don't know what the word I want to use is.
Conflict.
Contentious? Did I
A
conflicting?
conflicting view of ours, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Hodja here, which we do appreciate, by the way. We don't
Yes,
ever want to
absolutely.
make it seem like, we want people just to like agree with what we're saying. In fact, it's usually it's more fun if, people have differing opinions on these
Hmm.
things. That way we can kind of discuss them in a way that feels constructive and enlightening. So, just says, "Did you guys watch a different show than me? Granted, I never saw cartoon Star Wars." I think Hodge is referencing Clone Wars here. "So none of this crap makes sense. It's slow, and heaven forbid if Ezra doesn't have a female bodyguard. The way this show goes, I think I'm in line for the Force next week." Ooh, yikes, Haja. Haja, we do really appreciate your
Yes,
comment,
absolutely.
though, and we wanna talk about this and address it briefly here. Um, there is a real case and argument to be made that Ahsoka feels far less approachable and understandable for someone who has not seen Clone Wars or Rebels.
Mhm.
Like, I can only imagine how confusing elements of this show might be if I hadn't seen either of those previous shows.
Right.
And so whether it's because it's animated, that is maybe a turnoff to some. Um, I mean, I would advocate, and I know both of us would advocate that the story is great in Clone Wars and
Mhm.
Rebels.
Mhm.
So don't let animation be a reason that you don't watch it. But having said that, we know there are lots of people who haven't, who did watch Ahsoka, and so we'd also be curious just to hear from you. Like, what were your thoughts on the season, first of all? But
Mhm.
um, more or less to say that we empathize with what Haja is saying here. But at the same time, I think a lot of the holes in the show or the shortcomings that Haja is seeing, we don't have those same holes necessarily, only because of a lot of the background information that we've
Right.
obtained from these other shows. Did you have anything you wanted to add on that point?
Yeah, I mean, this is a valid criticism of the show, and we kind of talked to it going into it. Like, if you didn't watch Rebels, we know that this was, coined as Rebels season 5. And if you didn't know anything about Rebels, then how are you gonna enjoy the show, if at all? But that's not, for Haja, that is not their experience with the show, and that's fine. And that's, they with Star Wars, I should say. But it has been our experience with Star Wars, so we're going to continue to enjoy it as well. So as much as, maybe Haja didn't enjoy it because of those, those holes in the Star Wars lore that maybe they don't know, we were able to enjoy it. And so it is interesting to see that other side of it, where people like Haja, as and also as Spy on Sports as well, kind of not really enjoying The Walking Dead. I feel like that was more of a more of a criticism against the series as well. But I mean, I fully understand, and that's a valid point. That if that's not something that if that's not your jam, then it's not your jam. You don't necessarily have to like everything. There are plenty of people who like the prequels, and there are people that don't like the prequels. Same thing with the sequels, and everything. So I think Star Wars is ultimately for everybody, but not everything is for everybody. If that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, that's just the reality of it, and this shouldn't be a problem. We could all be fans of the work, and have these criticisms and say, okay, yeah, I understand. That's not what you like. That's not what you like.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. That was spot on. I think it's also, like, funny to know, and this is not directed at Hadja or anyone in
No, no.
particular. I just think it's funny that no matter what we get as Star Wars fans, like, someone is not going to
Hmm.
align with what we are given or enjoy it, someone is always going to have something to say. I think it's funny just as a general fan base, after Andor was released, people were like, "Oh, this is boring."
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though it's like a much more politically motivated show and it's like backroom conversations and stuff like that.
Sure.
Um, and so there's criticism on that end. And then we get something like Ahsoka, which is like the most lightsabers we've had in a show, maybe ever.
Yeah,
you
by
know?
far.
Yeah. And it's like, there's criticism no matter what.
Right.
No matter like I don't know. I don't even know what point I'm trying to make other than the fact that there's always going to be some people who don't enjoy it the same way you do, whether
Yeah.
you like it or dislike it. Again, as Joey said, that doesn't make any of us any less of Star Wars fans. It just
Right.
means we each kind of have our own tastes and interests and preferences when it comes to Star Wars, and that's okay.
Yeah. But thank you for the
And that's
comment.
yeah, yeah, we appreciate it. Keep the comments coming, everyone. As long as they're respectful, whether they're positive or negative, we'll entertain them and love discussing them here on the podcast episodes. The episode itself was titled "The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord," something that during our reaction I was like, "Oh, it's a Wizard of Oz reference." And
Close.
then I thought about it, and Gibbo, mentioned to us while we were watching. He said, "You mean Narnia?" And I was like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Narnia,
The
Narnia."
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Yes.
Yes. Uh, there was some sort of thinking on our part that maybe this was somehow a reference to like the wardrobe being the world between worlds. We were
Mhm.
going like really deep thinking. I don't even know if it was deep. You think it was just like a fun reference?
I think so. Maybe the director Rick was just like, you know what, I'm gonna throw this in there
Yeah.
just to mess with everybody.
Yeah. What is the deeper symbolic meaning of the fact that he's comparing this to Narnia?
Right.
Like, I just liked Narnia as a kid. But yeah, the episode opens up. The cargo transfer is being completed on Thrawn's ship. Meanwhile, the Great Mothers grant the Gift of Shadows to Morgan Elsbeth, something that looks like it makes her go blind. We're still not really exactly sure what it does. Obviously, she wasn't actually blind.
Yeah.
I guess we can assume, but um, just a pretty cool scene. In fact, we were like, "What is happening here?
Is this
Are they
good?
helping her? Are they giving her something good?" Yeah, we weren't even sure. But yeah, they give her what's called the Gift of Shadows, which we still don't really know what that means because it didn't feel like it enhanced her
Mhm.
ability with a weapon in any
In any way.
sense. But it did give her a new weapon in the
That's true.
Sword of Townsend, which again, for those who haven't seen the Clone Wars, this is a huge callback to the Clone Wars series. Mother Townsend is the chief Great Mother, the main Great Mother
Mhm.
in the Clone Wars series, and actually uses this sword in one episode too, I believe. So pretty cool to see it in live action. It looked awesome. I think you
Yeah,
referenced
very cool.
during the reaction, you were like, "Ooh, that's like even cooler than the dark saber
Yep.
almost."
Yeah, look at that. Got the
Uh,
green
but
fire around it. That looks
yeah,
hot. Looks hot.
it looks like a World of Warcraft weapon or something
It
like
does,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have to mine to get that. Jeez.
Meanwhile, Ezra begins building his new lightsaber with Hu Yang, and this is I feel like I'm a broken record, but this is another scene that
Mhm.
is so much more meaningful if you've seen Rebels. For those that don't know, Ezra, if you haven't seen Rebels, Ezra's master was Kanan Jarrus. Hu Yang, obviously being this uh, droid who's been alive for a long time during the height of the Republic with the Jedi Order, knows all about the construction of lightsabers and has helped many younglings through the years be able
Mhm.
to do this, including Kanan Jarrus, Ezra's former master. And so, um, through this conversation, both Ezra and Sabine learned that Hu Yang was the one that taught Kanan how to construct his lightsaber.
Mhm.
Hu Yang says that he's old enough to know that the relationship between a master and apprentice is as challenging as it is meaningful. And this
What
is more so in reference to kind of Ahsoka and Sabine's relationship.
what a great line.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's Hu Yang has some of the best like one-liners that are just it
Mhm.
sits on your brain. You're like, man, that's deep.
Aren't you a droid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. He is the least droid feeling droid we've ever had in Star Wars. I
Telling you,
think it's fair to say.
that's our next our draft, the next draft, the droid draft. I'm telling you.
Droid draft coming soon. Coming soon. Um, but yeah, so part of Ezra's lightsaber construction is there is a piece of the lightsaber necessary, and you mentioned it. It's the lightsaber, not the hilt, the guard or the lightsaber,
Yeah, the emitter, I believe.
the emitter. And so this is one of the pieces that Ezra's looking for in this mess of a ship, and so he finds it, and Hu Yang notes that it's the replacement one that he was saving from years and years and years ago from when Kanan first built his original lightsaber.
Yeah, that was a cool little callback.
Yeah. So this is like Ezra having a piece of Kanan with him at all times, like in the form of his lightsaber, which is really cool in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
I this was in my honorable mentions
yeah,
for my favorite moment of the episode.
yeah. And I mean, the even if you didn't really watch Rebels, you can understand that there is a connection between apprentice and their master, and especially handing down a piece that was meant for the master to be given to him as well. So yes, you could, if you hadn't seen it, you can kind of understand it. But if you were to watch Rebels, you see how close knit they were, kind of more of a family. These are just names at this point to people. Not necessarily a person, not necessarily a story. So having the Rebel story behind us, and learn just the interactions and dynamics between all of them, this really does help out with the scene.
You think we get a Kanan Jarrus Force Ghost in season
I,
2?
I honestly, I was thinking we were gonna get one here. I'm not
Oh, I would
lying.
have been so pumped.
Yeah, me too. Little Freddie Prinze Jr. He was the voice actor
Yeah.
for Kanan Jarrus and Rebels.
They gotta ease people into the Rebel
Yeah, I
stuff.
guess so. Yeah.
Now that we've seen them in live action, now maybe, like, it'll get people to watch it, and then they'll put the Kanan
I
Force
mean,
Ghost in season 2.
I wouldn't be against like just all of a sudden a Rebel. They just do Rebels live action, like a Rebel, like an
That'd be
actual
cool.
Rebels show.
Yeah, would it take place in this timeline or back in the actual Rebels timeline?
Give me, I don't care, just however they want to do it.
Inject it into my
That's
bloodstream.
right. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ahsoka and Sabine begin to have a conversation, um, talking about how Anakin has. Ahsoka tells um Sabine how Anakin always stood by her side, and now she will do the same for Sabine. We also get some new information, though, that Ahsoka. We know there was some sort of separation or
Hmm.
not seeing eye to eye between Ahsoka and Sabine. Years prior to when Ahsoka attempted to train Sabine for the first time. And we get a little bit more insight and information here in regards to that when we learn Ahsoka was worried that Sabine was becoming a Jedi for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
Now, what those perceived wrong reasons are exactly, we weren't given more insight into, whether it be like she was getting too close to the dark side, she was
Right.
craving power. That's kind of the inference that I thought they might be hinting at, but
Hmm.
they didn't go too in depth there. But as we mentioned, this is really Ahsoka's opportunity to connect with Sabine after kind of a sense of separation or just this uneasiness between the two of them throughout the whole show based on their past. It really feels like this is the scene that
Hmm.
completely resolves a lot of that. And importantly, provides the foundation and baseline, not just for the rest of the episode and seeing how their relationship, uh, you know, comes to be in the rest of episode 8, but how it will be in the rest of the Ahsoka show, presumably.
Right.
Um, and sets the groundwork for Sabine to,
Yeah.
as we learn, come back at the end of this episode and help Ahsoka.
Right. And I want to mention here the screenshot of Sabine looking at Ahsoka. I think they just did a really good job at the casting here for the Rebels crew. I
Hmm.
mean, with Sabine here, even this little look, this little smirk that she's given Ahsoka for those watching the video version of the podcast, it feels very genuinely Sabine. The Sabine that we kind of grew up with in the Rebels animated series. So to
Hmm.
to be able to see those personalities actually come to life in live action, I think they just did a really good job. With her, with Ezra, obviously with Ahsoka, we've kind of seen her already in live action, but with Hera and obviously with Chopper, it was just they did a really good job, and I was pleased with the end product.
Oh yeah, I think some people were hesitant before the season, myself admittedly included in that, about how the actors would live up to in terms of a live action depiction of characters who we've known and loved for so long in animated form, and I think they killed it. It was awesome.
Oh yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it was hits in every regard, especially Sabine and Ahsoka and Ezra and all of
Yeah.
them.
And Zeb. Oh wait, never mind.
Hopefully season 2, Zeb, we get to
Yeah, yeah.
see. As a result of this looming threat in Thrawn's eyes of Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra approaching, he decides to send two Tie fighters out to take out kind of the ship and this rest of the Noti population. The ship is not in a great state as a result of being fired upon by the Tie fighters, and so you see here, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, Ezra and Ahsoka keeping the ship in the air with the Force, which is barely just prior to Sabine being able to blast off, and fly into the the two TIE fighters.
I mean, that was a choice to do it that way, honestly. To yeah, she ended up. I think I don't know if she counted down and told them to like throw her. I don't know if you noticed that at all, but
Yeah.
she ended up just going full speed at the TIE fighters and using the T6 wings to clip them essentially and to have them crash. But unfortunately, disabling the T6 ship herself.
Yes. Yes. Very very Sabine moment here. She walks away from the fight or from the plane hitting running into the two TIE fighters and kind of smirks at Ahsoka and Ezra and is like, "Got him."
Got him.
One of the more lighthearted moments in this episode. I liked that part a lot.
Yeah.
The night troopers that were sent on the ground attack in support of the failed TIE fighter mission. This part I thought was also funny because how would you like to be stranded on Peridia for 10 years? And you're like, all right, we're working towards this. Thrawn's got a plan. And then a Jedi shows up, multiple Jedi show up, and Thrawn is like, well, we need you guys. And you're like, well, all right.
Sounds good.
Like,
I mean, to be fair, they
I
were
don't know.
called volunteers. They did
Yeah,
seem to volunteer for the job, so
right. Yeah.
it wasn't quite as bad.
All I'm saying is that if I was a night trooper, I would not have volunteered.
Right.
The night trooper volunteers are sent on the ground attack, and as part of this process, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra continue to ride toward Thrawn's ship. Um, they are then met with what is described as by Thrawn hellfire from the ship.
Mhm.
By
Yes.
the way, the on the video version of the podcast, there's a cool photo of it. The howlers that they ride.
Yep.
What did you think of the scene where they rode this toward the Night Sister castle looking thing?
They were hauling. I tell you what, they were hauling on those things. It was and it's like this half horse, half dog Pokemon looking thing uh that I don't know, it's captured the hearts of many here. So I liked it, and to see these three together again is just such a cool little thing to have.
Yeah, it was a moment from the episode, which we'll talk about in a bit as well, that we were like, it's just awesome to have most of the crew uh, back
Yes.
together. We're missing Zeb and
Where's
Hera,
Zeb?
but I'm sure we'll get Zeb probably in season 2 of Ahsoka. I would imagine at some point. I would
I'm
hope so
hoping.
at least. Um, as we said before, Thrawn responds to their advance by saying, "Meet them with hellfire," and so they rained down these like fireballs from. By the way, I didn't know Star Destroyers could shoot straight down. Is that a
Straight
new
down,
thing?
yeah. I did not realize that either. Maybe that's something they picked up on Peridia, some technologies
Yeah,
from
they
the
made
Noti
some
that they're like some modifications.
yeah, some below the ship modifications or something. Um, during this scene, Ezra and Sabine and Ahsoka are forced to, ha, no pun intended, forced to use the Force to open
Mhm.
the door to the castle and barely slip through with a very claustrophobic inducing moment where the Howler's tail
Yep.
almost got snipped off, but
N
they made
s
it through.
Worth to mention, this is the first time we think maybe Sabine actually uses her Force ability here. We don't know for certain because obviously both Ahsoka and Ezra are doing it as well. Sabine might be just like how I am in Fortnite, like just carried. I mean, just like just get her in past the into the circle here, and that was really it. But she seems to be using the Force ability. Again, we don't know how much help she was at this moment, though.
Right, but even if she didn't do anything, I think the important part of this scene is it's the first example of Ahsoka putting, actions behind her words that she
Hmm.
said to Sabine earlier. Not only am I gonna like be there for you and support you, but I'm gonna encourage you. And
Right.
so, it's not just the fact that did she use the Force or did she not use the Force in this scene? It's the fact that Ahsoka said, "We need you to help us."
Yep.
That she required of Sabine that.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so that in and of itself, I think, is the important piece of this scene. But as we said, they make it through and are met with a ton of night troopers,
Yes.
which eventually will become undead night troopers, as we'll talk about here in a second. Um, they make pretty good work of them, and it's a pretty fun scene to watch. One of the better
Yes.
scenes of the episode, seeing Sabine, Ahsoka, and Ezra all ignite their
I'm just
lightsabers.
I'm just saying, what's better than 1 lightsaber? 2. What's better than 2 is 3, and what's better than 3? 4. I mean, this is great.
What's better than four? Four and the Sword of Townsend.
Ah, keep going.
Yeah,
And magic.
and magic. The K, right?
With okay.
So, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra, quite impressively, I would add, make quick work of the night troopers. They shred their way through it. They're headed up towards the top level, towards Thrawn and Morgan and the Great Mothers. Little do they know, the Great Mothers are up top scheming and planning and resurrecting the night troopers. What did you think about this when you first saw it? Because I know this is probably a sticking point for a lot of people why they
Sure.
didn't enjoy the episode as
Yeah.
much as we did, maybe.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it because it's something that we've seen in the Clone Wars, in the video games, to come to the live action here, to actually see it being done here is just you know, I like these interweavings. We've talked about it time and time again. To see it again, here in live action with these night troopers, it was just it was really cool. But like we were talking at the top of the show, I can see why people wouldn't be on board with this, especially if they had never ever had any experience with them.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't know about Magic with a K,
Yeah,
this is a little weird.
right.
But of course, I mean, as fans of Clone Wars, we loved it.
Yes.
But let us know down in the comments of the YouTube video if this wasn't your jam, your vibe. Let us know what your thoughts on it were as well. But so after defeating the Night Troopers for the first time, they're faced with the prospect of defeating them for the second time
Yep.
and the third time,
Yeah.
the fourth time, because they just don't go away when you kill them because they're already dead.
Yeah. Right.
And so the uh, Ezra, there's a moment where he says, "Ice moves," and Ahsoka says, "She's been training."
Yeah.
Sabine then says to Ezra, "What's your excuse?" And Ezra says to Sabine, "I miss you."
Yeah.
Kind of an
Which
endearing moment there amidst
which
the
is an
chaos of the fight.
which is an interesting way to say that. I mean, people who maybe want a because you've seen there's definitely like an Ezra Sabine dynamic, whether it is
Mhm.
brother or sister, whether it is kind of a love interest type of thing. This is kind of ambiguous as far as the meaning behind this, because it could have been anything else, but to say I missed you at that moment is kind of could be either way, really, right?
Yep, yep. I don't know. That's another thought to consider. Are Ezra and Sabine ever at any point going to be more than just friends?
I
Is
don't
uh
know.
is Ezra gonna break out of the friend zone?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
That remains to be seen in season 2 of Ahsoka.
that's right.
Meanwhile, during season 1, Thrawn then tells Morgan that they are going to require more time before departing. Really starting to see Thrawn sweat here in this moment because he's
Yep.
saying, "All right, Morgan, look, we need you and your new Night Sister magic, the what do we call it? The Sight of Shadows, the Gift of Shadows.
Hmm.
We need you and your Gift of Shadows to buy us some more time. We need you to fight
Right.
Ahsoka, essentially." So Morgan then proceeds to confront the three and begins with the fight with Ahsoka, while Ezra and Sabine look for Thrawn. I thought this was a little interesting that I know her mission was to confront Ahsoka and stop Ahsoka, but like pays absolutely no attention to Ezra and Sabine. Meanwhile, Thrawn
Yeah.
just told
Yeah.
her, like, we need time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of weird how
That's a
she
good
just
point,
allowed them to
actually.
pass.
Right. Yeah, that's true. She was like, I'm here for Ahsoka, and that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe she's still bitter about what happened during the Mandalorian season.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Okay,
um,
and she got her promotion. She's got the extra black magic.
yep, extra black magic. So she does stop the three of them and begins to fight with Ahsoka while Ezra and Sabine proceed on to look for Thrawn. But the fight itself was something to witness, pretty cool, which
Oh,
then would
absolutely.
then later carry on up into the top further up half of
Yeah,
of the tower. Is that what we're calling it? The tower?
I think so. Yeah. what was it even? It was yeah, it was kind of like the landing platform of the like the lower levels of the landing platform or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So Ezra and Sabine, while Ahsoka continues to fight Morgan, fight the two reanimated like super night troopers. I don't know if they
Hmm.
have an official name. They probably do.
Right.
Avasuvi, if you're listening, I feel like this is knowledge you would know. What the official names of those two reanimated super night troopers were at the top of the landing deck, but
Hmm.
ultimately, the key part of this fight is that the super troopers, because they are undead, are kind of handling Sabine and Ezra more surprisingly than we would expect them to. Sabine drops her lightsaber as a result of this, and
Hmm.
again, I'm going to use the pun, is forced to use the Force to get her lightsaber. Now,
Yep.
again, if there is a moment in this episode which some people could and you and I saw this, like, almost pretty quickly after the
Oh
episode when
yeah.
we were checking out, like, social media and YouTube, and stuff like that. People were not high on this part of the episode,
Yep. Yep.
which is something we could talk about. She uses the Force to grab the lightsaber, ignites it, and, does away with the super Death Trooper or whatever we're calling him. What are your thoughts on this? Because personally, I don't think either of us have a problem with this,
Right.
and I
Right.
can talk about more why I don't personally,
Yeah.
but I would love to hear what your thoughts are.
I mean, we saw the struggle going into her struggle going into this season as far as, force abilities. We know she was trained by Ahsoka, that's part of that's part of her story. So, and we even know that Hu Yang himself even said she doesn't necessarily have the talent to be a Jedi, right? But her journey is much much different from your traditional Jedi, your traditional, whether you're talking about Ahsoka or you're talking about an Anakin. She's not on that same path, and we know that. Not everyone's going to be Michael Jordan on the Bulls. Some of them is going to have to be Cliff Levingston. Some of them have to be Dennis Housen. That they're not everyone's going to be Luke Skywalker, and there's no problem with that. So I think that the fact that we had to wait basically to the very last episode of the season means that that she had to work for it, and maybe and I understand if that's not you don't want that to be the story, then you're entitled to that. But for me, I completely accepted this. It would be one thing if it was the first episode, she moved in and then she's just moving things around with the Force, but it took her this long to get to this place, so I was completely fine with
Love how you snuck a Chicago Bulls reference in there.
it. Go Bulls.
The last thing you said though is essentially my reasoning for why I don't have a problem with this as well. Coming into this show, people were seeing the trailer and seeing, Sabine with a lightsaber. People were very nervous that that was the route they were going to take. That, oh, well, Sabine is force sensitive now, right? Um, the direction they chose with Sabine's character, done in a way that I think would make some of us that felt nervous about that. Like personally, I was one of those people. I was like, I don't want to see Sabine be force
Yeah,
sensitive.
same. Yeah.
But I think when you lay this out over the course of 8 episodes with subtle, inclusions from episode to episode of, like seeing her slowly building not even her ability, but just her potential to have ability,
Sure.
that grounds this scene in more reasonability than if episode 1 would have started and Sabine is like, force pushing stuff around.
Yeah, right.
Because she lacked the ability at the beginning of the season and because we saw her struggle throughout the season, makes it more believable in this episode, in my opinion. And, as you said, she's not Luke Skywalker. She's not Anakin Skywalker.
Mhm.
She's probably one of, if you want to consider her a quote unquote Jedi now, she's probably one of the weakest Jedi we've ever seen in Star Wars. You want to
Right.
think about it that way, if that makes you feel any better for those of you that were upset by um having said all that, I don't have a problem with this, and if it means she grows stronger in the coming seasons, I'm fine with that too,
Yeah.
as long as it's done in a way that is gradual and
Mhm.
doesn't, infringe upon the inferred power that the character should
Yeah.
in theory be able to possess. 'Cause I think the way they did it in this season was
Yeah.
actually pretty
It's
good.
probably the best way that they've done it, in my opinion, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
Where it took us, what, it took us 8 episodes to get to this point.
yeah,
Whereas and you see in movies, it's gonna be, like, not even a full movie, you know? So
right.
I think that's where the comparison comes, and I'm just saying I can make a free throw. So, does that mean does that mean I don't that I can't play basketball because of it? Maybe that's
Yeah.
a stretch of the force, whatever, but still, you know what I'm saying.
I'm gonna take a page out of your book whenever you say this all the time when people talk about Rey in the sequels, and so I'm gonna take a page out of your book and use the same thought process in regards to Sabine. Like, again, I am not saying that I dislike the originals in any way, shape, or form. They are still far and away like what I think are the best parts of Star Wars.
Mhm.
However, Luke Skywalker goes from having no knowledge of the Force at all, to being able to lift an X-wing out of the water on Dagobah in a mere what, couple of days? We don't really know how long he was training, but
It's a full X-wing.
right. I mean, so the fact that Sabine could pull a lightsaber to herself. Now,
Yeah.
again, the force push thing might be a little bit more, but the fact she could pull a lightsaber to herself after, we have to think about things in context. I'm
Yeah.
okay with it personally. Let us know
Yeah.
down in the comments if you're not, but uh, not to go on my soapbox. I apologize. All right, let's get back on track. Where were we? Meanwhile, Thrawn is taking off in his ship, and Sabine and Ezra come to this chasm between the ship and
There's
the
always a chasm.
edge of the platform. Oh yeah, yeah, it is quite the chasm. In fact, so much so that the ship is still moving, and Sabine says, "The longer we wait, the tougher it gets."
Yep.
And so Ezra force jumps off the platform. Sabine then proceeds to force push him up to the edge.
Come on.
I mean,
It's entertainment.
it was entertainment. I wish when they had done this though, that it would have felt like one continuous motion. I feel like it
Oh,
would
yeah,
have
yeah.
looked cooler.
But
Instead,
he was falling
yeah,
already
he
until
jumps
she pushed.
halfway and his trajectory is going down, and then
Listen,
she pushes him up.
listen, this is her first force push, okay? Give her some slack. She got it done. It wasn't the cleanest, but, she got it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't have a huge issue with this. I
Mhm.
can understand people who do, but
Sure.
personally, with the progression of the character, I don't have a huge issue with this. All I'm saying. Meanwhile, the after Sabine force pushes Ezra onto the ship, he takes out two more troopers, and the plan originally was that Sabine would then force jump, and that he would then force pull her
Mhm.
to the ship, which seems a tad unrealistic, but we come back to that here in a second because meanwhile, Morgan and Ahsoka are still fighting. Morgan says to Ahsoka, "Your friends are dead, and you will die here and alone." And so, with the way that they did the scene, we're led to believe that Sabine jumped to Ezra and may or may not have made it because we don't actually see her jump. Sabine
Mhm.
then appropriately and quite triumphantly responds, "Not alone,"
Yep.
and ignites the lightsaber at the same
Yes.
time. So
What a good shot.
not only is Ahsoka there for Sabine, Sabine is there for Ahsoka. Morgan's response in this scene too was kind of like rage.
Oh, yeah.
It
She
was
was not
kinda
happy.
I was like, "Oh,
I
she
killed
mad."
him. Oh, she's mad, yeah.
And in what I thought might have been I think the Ahsoka Balin fight is a close contender, but in what might have been one of the best sequences of lightsaber duels in the season of Ahsoka, the, following duel, the later portion of the duel between Ahsoka and Morgan was really cool, I thought.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Uh, and so inevitably, Ahsoka defeats Morgan, and almost instantly it cuts to the Great Mothers after you see Ahsoka do a little double slice across the
Oh,
abdomen of Morgan. The Great Mothers recognize that, oh, Morgan is gone.
yeah.
And Thrawn savagely is like, "That's it was a good sacrifice." He doesn't
Yeah.
say it was a good
Yeah,
sacrifice, but,
yeah.
more or
She did
less, it
what
was
she
a
needed to.
necessary. Yeah,
Yeah.
she did what she needed to. So, um, next up is Ezra is on Thrawn's ship after having been forced pushed by Sabine. takes one of the Night Trooper's armor, who he has uh, incapacitated, and we can assume that he then puts it on, which we'll see again in a later scene. And so Thrawn then begins to open fire on the landing platform after having created a reasonable distance so that he cannot be reached by either Ahsoka or Sabine at this point. Meanwhile, Ahsoka and Sabine escape the landing platform by jumping on top of the T6 flown in by Hu Yang just in time. All these poor undead night troopers, as well as the old body of Morgan Elsbeth, are falling into the rubble into oblivion. And the T6 then proceeds to chase Thrawn's ship to the Eye of Sion, which, if you don't remember, was kind of the circle-like thing that Morgan, Balin, and Shin all used in order to originally get to Peridia. Thrawn then opens a comm channel to Ahsoka and Sabine, and when he said that, I was like, "Ooh, we're gonna get some
Yeah.
Thrawn and Ahsoka interactions here." Something that I did not realize until this moment, additionally, is that Thrawn and Ahsoka have never actually met face to
Yeah.
face.
I didn't realize that until this little trash talking by Thrawn here.
Yeah, like if you were to ask me off the top of my head, have they? My inclination would have been to have said yes at some point in Rebels,
Mhm.
but they haven't, and they still haven't up to this point.
Yep.
And maybe a little bit of foreshadowing for season 2. Thrawn says it's a shame we'll never get to. So we can only assume that there will definitely be a
Yeah.
face-to-face meeting of these two at some point in next season. But Thrawn, when he opens the comms to Ahsoka and Sabine, he says, "One wonders just how similar you might become." And this is in
Yep.
reference to Anakin when he's talking about Ahsoka, of course, being the Padawan of Anakin. He says,
Mhm.
"Perhaps this is where a Ronin such as you belongs. Today, victory is mine. Long live the Empire."
What a cool
Uh,
dude.
Man, just savage line. Little does he know he's gonna get back to the galaxy we know, and the Empire's not even gonna exist.
Yeah. Take it.
Is Thrawn Snoke? Join us next
Oh
time
my god.
on
We
Thrawn is
found him.
like, "I'm starting the First Order."
Yeah.
Another homage here, this whole season was filled with all kinds of, references to this samurai style,
Yeah.
showdowns in these duels between Balin and Ahsoka, between Ahsoka and Morgan,
Mhm.
between Shin and Sabine, just all different kinds of these homages to these samurai fights of past film. And so I thought it was particularly applicable that he referred to her as a Ronin at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to mention her like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Long live the Empire, he says. We'll see how long that empire lives. Do you this is a good question. Do you think the empire which he foresees or that he will perhaps institute will become what we know as the First Order?
You would think, or at least the
The
early
ground
stepping
layer?
stones, yeah, the early ground zero stepping stones of it, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited for season 2 to find that
Mhm.
information out. The remainder of the episode is almost like an epilogue-like sort of portion in which Ahsoka and Sabine, because they're not able to escape off of Peridia, return to the Noti, where Ahsoka sees Morai. I always am hesitant that I'm mispronouncing the name, but if you don't know who the owl
Mhm.
Morai is, this is the embodiment of the daughter, who is one of the three Mortis gods. The daughter is the one who not only imbues the light side of the Force, but also is the one who gave her light force to Ahsoka in the Clone Wars show so that she might live rather than die.
Right.
And so, since that moment, Morai has followed Ahsoka around, more or less being a physical depiction of at least how I've understood it to be the
Mhm.
daughter almost like traveling with her wherever she goes in some way or another. And we see this in The Mandalorian as well when we first meet Ahsoka in her episode of Mando. We find out Shin is presumably going to be the leader of a group of the bandits on Peridia. She
Kinda what it looks like, yeah.
raises her ignited lightsaber in front of them. Um, I thought the Shin ending was a little bit weak.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I would
like,
agree
what's
with
she
that.
gonna do with a bunch of bandits on Peridia? In the grand scheme of
Right.
things, it feels kind of minute.
Mhm.
I don't know.
What's not minute, though.
What's not minute and is going to heavily impact the next episode or the next season, I should say, of Ahsoka. Um, Even though, Ray Stevenson, unfortunately won't be able to be a part of it, is that his character Balin Skull stands on the outstretched arm of one of the three Mortis gods, the Father. For those that don't know, the three Mortis gods from the original Clone Wars arc are the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. In the image, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, the Father is in the middle, the Son is on the right, and actually the head of the Daughter is not present on
Mhm.
Meridia. Um, I don't, we don't really know what happened there, but that's probably maybe a reference to the fact that the daughter gave her life force to Ahsoka
Mhm.
in the Clone Wars. We're not really sure why that head is missing from the statue, but Balin is on the outstretched arm of the father, and that's kind of where we see Balin's story end for the season, in
Mhm.
shrouded in mystery, and we now understand that his goal and his purpose is connected to the Mortis
Yes,
gods. I
absolutely.
I wanted more information on that so bad, and we didn't get it,
And
so
I wasn't, like, fully right that he wasn't gonna be in it at all,
yeah, yeah,
but kind of.
right, right. I'm curious to see how they go with his character in next season. I really hope. I don't know. I could see him going so many different ways, and
Yep.
maybe that's something we can. Next week's podcast episode is going to still be focusing on Ahsoka, and so perhaps that's a question we'll pose during next week's
Yeah.
episode that we can dive even more deeply into. Meanwhile, Thrawn's ship is approaching a giant red planet, which we learn is Dathomir. So the Great
Yep.
Mothers are returning with the cargo and Thrawn to Dathomir. For those
Mhm.
that don't know, Dathomir is the planet that the Night Sisters call their homeworld. Again, now we know that I guess technically Peridia is their ancient homeworld,
Yep.
but after leaving Peridia, Dathomir became their homeworld in the galaxy that we are all familiar with. And so um, one can presume that something shady is afoot, and perhaps these cargo, which look a lot like sarcophagi,
Mhm.
might be brought to Dathomir in order to reinvigorate life into them in some way or another. So we might see an undead army in season 2 of Ahsoka.
Yes. If you didn't like The Walking Dead here,
Yeah.
you're not gonna like season 2, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think people honestly, if anyone out there is, like, on the fence about Clone Wars and Rebels, I think this is a pretty good reason to watch Clone Wars just so that you
Mhm.
can get a better understanding of Night Sister magic and kind of the role that it plays in terms of just Star Wars as a whole, and how it pertains to the Great Mothers and what they're planning. So watch Clone Wars if you haven't seen it yet. Highly recommend. The Imperial ship lands inside of the New Republic fleet. Hera, Ezra, and Chopper have a really great reunion that's an emotional moment for Hera and Ezra, especially. Chopper recognizes it's Ezra actually before anyone else does,
Mhm.
so we can assume that Ezra and Hera are going to do all they can to stop Thrawn and perhaps even get back to Ahsoka and Sabine as quickly as possible. Who meanwhile are in the Noti village, Ahsoka and Sabine, and Ahsoka says Ezra is where he needs to be, and so are we. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
There's almost this immense sense of peace that Ahsoka has, even in the midst of being stranded on this planet in another galaxy. She's like, "It's okay. We're exactly where we need to be."
Yeah.
uh,
And I
j-
and I really like that, that piece again, that we talked about earlier, just the Ahsoka the
yeah,
White, it just seems that she understands kind of everything, sees the bigger picture. And yeah, even though we may not be exactly where we wanna be, we are where we are, and this is what, this was a good moment. This is a really good moment.
yeah.
Ending with this, though.
I know, right? And then the final moment of the episode that we get to see Force Ghost Anakin. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was just hit me right in the happiness, in the funny bone.
Yep,
This was
absolutely.
really cool. To kind of conclude this idea that Ahsoka is really at peace with the way things are. After her pretty cool encounter with Anakin in the World Between Worlds in Episode 5, we get to see his Force Ghost again here, sort of just watching over Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Um, how this all plays into like The Mortis God stuff, we're still not
Yeah, yeah.
really sure, like, what Anakin's role in that might be or
What do you
not
think
be.
what do you think his thoughts are in this shot here? Because I was trying to figure out, like, what he would be thinking
Right.
looking at all of this happen kind of right in front of him,
I
and his
think
face doesn't necessarily give anything away, which, it doesn't seem like he's, like, happy with what's how things have turned. It's almost a look of concern if you kinda look at it a certain way.
yeah, I feel like we're led to believe that it's a sense of pride in his Padawan,
Yes.
but again, not a ton of emotion being expressed
Yeah.
here from
Right.
Hayden in this scene, so, um, I think in some way, he might take on more of an Obi-Wan to Luke role
Mhm.
in like the way that, Obi-Wan
Oh,
is to
sure. Yeah,
Luke
yeah.
in episode 5 especially. So, I think he may take on, more a more
Oof.
direct
I didn't
approach
even
with
think of that.
Ahsoka
I didn't even
in
think of that. That's a
in
good point.
season 2. Like, she's gonna be hearing him, like, speak to her through the Force and whatnot. So, I guess technically she already has in the World Between Worlds, but
Yeah.
anyways, so cool moment getting to see Anakin at the end of this episode. It was awesome. We have gone over the entire episode at this point. A great one. It was. At this time, we are going to list our favorite moments from the episode. Something tells me we have pretty similar thoughts in this regard. But Joey, would you like to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, it's pretty clear. The Ahsoka Morgan duel is probably the best that I've seen in live action for a long time. So I think easily their lightsaber fight ending with a dual slight. I feel that is Ahsoka's like finishing move. You know, in like Mortal Kombat, they have like a finishing move. I feel
Yeah.
like the slice has become hers, whether it was Tales of the Jedi and now here with Morgan. Just that swift slice through the abdomen is her finishing move, and just that's Star Wars, man. We've talked about how we could love great storylines, great characters, but as long as you got some lightsabers going all around, yeah, that's Star Wars to me. So that's definitely my favorite moment.
The key is to slice them in the abdomen and not put the entire saber through their body. Because if you
Yes,
do
that's
that,
right.
then they
Yeah.
might survive.
See, Ahsoka learned early on.
Yeah. My favorite moment from the episode was also the Ahsoka versus Morgan duel. I thought it was probably the best choreographed lightsaber fight of
Mhm.
the season. And again, the finishing move, the Mortal Kombat move, as you called it, was pretty epic. Even here in the image, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, you can see how the different slices, both one using her own saber, the other using the Townsend blade, kind of left different colored remnants or residue on the abdomen of Morgan as she is going down at this
Yep.
point. So, side note, what do you think the Blade of Townsend is gonna be used for now? Like, is
Oh, that's a
Ahsoka
good
just
point.
gonna hold on to that thing or what? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she's gonna have to. I mean, I feel like, especially with someone like Sabine around, she really does like uh look at artifacts like that and try to break them down. So maybe that's a little bit of something she will be doing with it. So maybe that's going to be her second saber. Who knows? But yeah, that's a great question. Who knows what'll happen with that Townsend sword?
I don't know, I feel like that's just a temptation leaving that thing around. Like, Ezra's had some, dark side
Yeah, yeah,
flirtations.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe Sabine has, we don't really know, like, with Ahsoka saying that she had the wrong intentions when she was training her,
Hmm.
years ago.
I mean, you could even go as far as maybe Ahsoka does. Thrawn kind of left that little nugget, saying
Right,
that
yeah.
who knows what you'll become if you were trained by Anakin, who is notoriously one of the biggest villains in the universe. So who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of, like, kind of the themes of episode 5 where there was that moment where it looked like Ahsoka's eyes were
Hmm.
were going evil.
Yep.
I don't know. What's gonna happen with the Blade of Townsend? Let us know in the comments. Some of the other honorable mentions that I thought was also worth mentioning, I just love anything with Balin, so
Yeah.
the 30 seconds we got with him, I was like, "Oh,
I mean,
awesome."
how important was it? I mean, it showed the Mortis
Right,
gods.
right, and I mean, we can unless, he gets recast, we're probably not gonna see Balin next season,
Hmm.
and so a lot of next season is probably going to deal with sort of what we were seeing Balin, uh whatever it was, the goal of his mission,
Right.
as it relates to the Mortis gods. That's probably gonna be a big part of season 2.
Hmm.
I could actually even see them making season 2 an entirely build up to the Mortis gods,
Yeah.
and then not really seeing it in season
Ooh,
2 and
that's a
it being
we
like
should write
a
that down. What's for our questions for next week?
2 to 3 cliffhanger sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Right. Yeah.
Which means we'll see the Mortis gods in live action, in 2026. We'll see you here on the Hoth Hangout channel to react to it then. So, but yeah, the Balin scene was pretty cool. It's a shame we won't get to see Rey in the role anymore, but, I probably my favorite character of the show,
Hmm.
I would say. Additionally, Ezra making his own lightsaber was pretty cool, and the
Yes.
Sword of Townsend, which we've already mentioned, as well,
Yeah.
so lots of amazing moments from this episode, particularly the lightsaber duels were just like, "Ooh, those are some of the best we've had in quite some time," so Um, all right. Having said that, I feel like the only thing left that we have to do is grade the episode in our reaction. Yesterday, we recorded 2 days ago at the time of the release of this podcast. Um, we both gave the episode on the spot tens,
Yes, we did.
um, following the reaction, the watch through of it. Did I go first on this one? Or you want to go first on this one?
You can go ahead and go first.
Okay. I thought about this a lot, and I wanted to watch the episode a second time, and I didn't get the chance to today. So to be fair, I still have only seen the episode once. So this, maybe it's justified, maybe it's not. But I took my score from a 10 to a 9.5 out of 10.
It's still not bad.
Not bad. I mean, to be fair, I loved this episode. It was
Hmm.
great. I think the reason I did that was because I looked at the grand scheme of the season. I don't think I ever gave any episode lower than an 8. Um,
Or even
and
close to that,
epis
even honestly.
right, maybe even I think 8.5 or 9 might have been my lowest. Um, and then in regards to the other episodes, I looked at episode 5, I looked at episode 6 at just how much I loved both of those episodes.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
And they were definitely by far my favorite too. If I had to rank the episodes, this is tough because after episode 6, I think I actually said that I liked it more than 5.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In retrospect, I almost wanna walk that back, but I'm gonna have to just watch the whole show again.
Yeah.
5 and 6 were close for me, and I gave both of those 10s. I think I liked 8 next most, and then 7.
Hmm.
And I can't recall what I gave last week's episode on the rankings. Did I give it a 9.5 or a 9, or
Yeah. We can look
did I
back,
give it
but
a
yeah.
10?
Yeah. It was high.
Regardless, yeah, the last 4 episodes for me were probably my favorite 4 of the season, which I
Hmm.
think says something about good storytelling.
Hmm.
It was building towards the pinnacle of the show
Right.
rather than it kind of, like, falling off like we've seen with a couple other shows maybe in the Star Wars universe, but, basically, that was my long-winded way of saying when I look at the last 4 episodes, I like 5 and 6 a lot, and I didn't love 8 quite as much as those 2.
It's fair.
And I couldn't even pinpoint really exactly what that was. I think I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more incorporation of just Thrawn's character, because people
Mm-hmm.
still,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
especially, like, you have to think about this from the lens of people who don't know who Thrawn is before this show. Like, why is he a threat? What has he
Right. Yeah.
done to prove that he is a threat?
Hmm.
For people who haven't seen Rebels, for people who haven't read the books, like, why is Thrawn a threat right now?
Like, where
Why.
does blue guy come from?
Right, exactly. And so, uh, from that perspective, I think they left non-Rebels viewers a little bit in the cold just with the character of Thrawn,
Yeah.
because I feel like he's so much better and cooler than him they made him seem,
And more
um,
dangerous.
and more dangerous, exactly. Like, the dangerous element I felt like was missing from Thrawn
Hmm.
for the last 3 episodes, and I thought we were gonna see more of that in the finale because they were building up to it, and we didn't really see why he was dangerous. We just saw that
Yeah.
he maybe was ambitious and that he
Yeah.
succeeded in his plan. But why is he dangerous? We haven't really got that in live action. So all that to say, my long-winded way of saying 9.5 out of
Yeah,
10.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking with my 10. It was a good finale for me. I went into it thinking we don't have a season 2 confirmed yet.
Right.
How would I feel if this was it for now? Whether,
Oh,
you
don't
know,
say that.
listen, I am the bearer of bad news. I am the realist. These are types of things that I think about. I did say last week that we wouldn't see Balin this week.
Yeah.
Um, so what if this was the last episode and we have to wait for a movie or we have to wait for something else? This is the precursor to the movie. If it, and we had
Ooh.
to wait a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years for it. How would I feel going, leaving this? I mean, where it leaves us is these great storylines that have yet to be discovered. We have Shin, we've got Balin, we've got and also Ahsoka and Sabine all on Pridia, just on different parts. So what does that mean for that dynamic? Once again, somehow Ezra got stuck with Thrawn for a little bit, but somehow escaped. We didn't really see any of that escape part off of his ship. So there's another little bit that we need to see. Um, we know we end up at some point in the sequel trilogy. So kind of what we were saying, how does Thrawn tie into all of that? Is he part of um um oh my god, I was gonna say New World Order, but that is the wrestling the first order.
First
The
order.
first order. I'm like New World Order, Hulk Hogan. If he how does he tie into the first order? If he's Snoke, like you and I joked about a little offline,
Can
just
you imagine that though? There's no way they do that.
I
No
mean,
way.
who knows? Uh but yeah, so all that to say, yeah, it left me with the warmth inside when um Morgan and Ahsoka were fighting. She said you were alone. Sabine said no, not alone, and then she fought alongside with her. Just all of that. It really wrapped it up nicely for me in the way that I felt like happy and yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10. This whole series, this series really came through for me. Episode by episode, I felt like there were no filler episodes like we've seen in other shows. So on a grander scheme of things, yeah, this series was a lot of fun to watch over the past 7 weeks.
Yeah, I would agree too. No filler episode. I didn't think a single episode felt like filler, and I
Hmm.
think that was what made this. I think it's safe to say my favorite live action Star
Oh
Wars
yeah,
show.
yeah, I would
I
say
mean,
that
some
easily.
fans of The Mandalorian might take issue with that, but I think I liked Ahsoka.
Hmm.
I mean, Mando season 2 is so good, don't get me wrong.
But
I
as
just
a
feel
as a
like
full series at this point,
yeah,
there
yeah.
have been some misses on those shows. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
right?
I think
So
Ahsoka has more going for it in terms of its relatedness to the entire scheme of what Star Wars is.
mhm,
Whereas Mando now kind of feels like it's more of an offshoot thing, at the end
right,
of season 3 with him and Grogu sort of just being like, well, we're going to do our bounty hunter thing again.
yeah, right, right.
Anyways, so much to look forward to in terms of Star Wars. And I might add just one closing thought on the show as a whole.
Hmm.
Um, this is really, this first season is the foundation for the rest of the show in the sense that I think a lot of people thought this was going to be the reincorporation of Thrawn
Hmm.
and, his coming to face with Ahsoka and how they're going to deal with Thrawn. And it was that in a lot of regards. But foundationally underneath all of that, this season is about Ahsoka and Sabine
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the rekindling of their relationship and the mending of it to the point where we get in the last episode to now we see, there's this sense of peace
Hmm.
with where they are as a master and apprentice. And so, season one, while it is the season of Thrawn, if you want to call it that, and his introduction into the live action Star Wars, largely this is about Ahsoka and Sabine and their relationship. So that moving forward with
Hmm.
the rest of the show, we have now seen where they've come from to where they are, so that we can now move forward with this awesome master apprentice combo as
Yeah.
well. All that to say, the question we would like to pose to you, the viewers, is simply: did you enjoy the Ahsoka series? What are your thoughts on it? Give it a rating out of 10. Joey and I, as we do in most our podcasts that cover episodes of any recent Star Wars shows that are going on at the time of our recordings. We like to give the episodes a scoring out of 10. So let us know what your score is. Is it a 10 out of 10? Is it some of you out there who are like, Sabine is not force sensitive? That was a 4 out of 10 episode.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know. To tease one more thing that we talked about earlier, this is a little bit more of it than just a tease because we've given it sort of an unofficial name at this point. The name is pending TBD, but on next week's episode, episode 53 of the Hoth Hangout podcast, we are now temporarily titling it "Stop, Collaborate, and Listen." uh, Otherwise known as the collaboration station. Something Joey and I have thought about a lot in recent weeks, and something we hope to do, especially as we are no longer watching a show that's coming out week to week at this moment in time with the conclusion of Ahsoka. We want to open the conversation to some other Star Wars podcast creators, just Star Wars creators in general. So Joey and I are currently in the process of sort of reaching out to people within the community, seeing if other people would be interested in coming on, sort of having roundtable discussions centered on some large topics or broad questions that we hope to pose in future episodes. So moving forward, there may be perhaps even more than one episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast where we'll invite guests on, more than one guest at once, more than likely, and sort of have a what we're calling a collaboration station roundtable discussion of the
Names
Ahsoka
pending.
series. Names pending. Yes. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, to find out who those people are prior to the release of next week's episode, as I'm sure there is a chance we might announce them before the fact on
Mhm.
the social media. So at Hoth Hangout on each of the social medias. As always, you can send us questions additionally, whether it be Instagram, X, or email. Each of those platforms we're reachable on at Hoth Hangout or by email hothhangout@gmail.com. Additionally, you can check us out on YouTube if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast. We do a video version as well if you're ever interested in checking that out. We post all of our reactions to the current Star Wars episodes over on the YouTube channel. Additionally, we want to thank the 334 of you that are subscribed over there. Thank you so very much for being a subscriber to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel. We've got more awesome content coming your way. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not subscribed, feel more than welcome to hit the subscribe button. We would very much appreciate it. And thank you so very much for doing that. You can catch the audio version of our podcast on Apple and Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Leave a 5-star review on those platforms as well. It really helps the podcast to grow, and we would appreciate that too. As previously mentioned, you can check us out on socials at Hoth Hangout, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or X.
X.
Catch us on all of those. Thank you to Gibbo for producing the Hoth Hangout podcast, all the work that he does behind the scenes. Shout out to Gibbo. Can we get some love for Gibbo down in the comments of this episode? And jumping on this Purgle, we like to call a podcast. The alternate name for the Hoth Hangout podcast is the Pop and Purgle podcast.
Yeah,
I don't
sounds
know.
good. Yeah.
Name pending. So. Joe, you got any last thoughts on Ahsoka as a whole before we sign off on this one?
What a wild ride that we were on the past 7 weeks. It was a lot of fun going through all the reactions. Shout out to Disney to changing the time to earlier for us in the United States. So thank you very much.
Great shout out there. Yeah.
Yeah, but also please give us group watch back because doing the reactions were a little bit harder. So
Yeah.
hand in hand.
We had to figure out like week 6 or 7. Like Disney took away group watch in the middle of our Ahsoka watch through, and that made it a little difficult.
So rude, but we got it done.
Got it done.
Yeah, but thank you again, Gibbo. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun watching this series. But now we move on to all other Star Wars types of conversations and collaborations, as we've already kind of teased. So yeah, I'm excited to what comes next here on the Hoth Hangout podcast.
Absolutely. Let us know in the comments or on any of the socials if there's something you're interested in seeing us talk about or break down or discuss, whether it be Ahsoka or anything Star Wars related. Otherwise, let us know that information. We are also going to be not fully done with Ahsoka, as next week I would imagine some of our questions that we hope to pose to some of our guests will likely be heavily influenced and involved with the Ahsoka show as we sort of continue to wrap up our Ahsoka journey that we've
We
been
don't want
on
it to
the
end.
past
We just
few
don't want it to
months.
end. That's all.
We're
it is.
gonna next 10 episodes of the podcast are all Ahsoka. No. But yeah, be on the lookout for that. More information coming on the Hoth Hangout socials. Shout out to George Lucas and shout out to Dave Filoni for this amazing show that we were graced with called Ahsoka. And much love to all of you for listening to each of our podcasts, for each of you that have listened and watched, and just all the love in the past few months with the craziness of Ahsoka. So we appreciate each and every single one of you very much. We hope to catch you during next week's episode 53. And until then, thank you so much for listening, and may the Force be with you.